to thank everybody for being here on a very steamy day for the 13th annual Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association reading of the Declaration of Independence. It feels extremely important that we're here today when almost daily it feels like the United States Supreme Court is changing the course of all of our lives here in the United States, when there's people that are threatening the foundation of our democracy and freedom. So thank you very much for everybody being here. I wanted to introduce Ashley Smith, who's going to sing our national anthem. Ashley. Oh, sing, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose thoughts rise and rise dawn through the perilous skies, o'er the ramparts we watch, where so gallantly street gleams. And the rockets roll down, the months bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you very much. That was great. When in the course of the... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Rob, I'd like to invite Rob Fickman up to the podium now.
All right, still short. Thank you all for helping keep this tradition alive. I'm talking about all y'all. Giving it meaning. This year we've organized about 140 readings statewide. They all started here in 2010. Some of y'all were here. Who was here in 2010? Raise your hand. Our fellow Houstonians will be reading the Declaration on the Road. Vicki Aaron will be reading the Declaration on the Courthouse Lawn in Martha. And Tyler will be reading the Declaration in Canada. Wish I was there. In these difficult days in our nation's history, with all the divisiveness, it can only help for us and the public to be reminded by the words of the Declaration as to what principles unite us. I'm convinced that we're always united by far more than that which divides us. We share a long history of rebelling against tyrants. That's a good thing. Let us never forget that we are united in our common struggle against tyranny and tyrannical judges, many of which still occupy the courthouse. Happy 4th of all. Thank you for coming.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transit causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing inherently the same objects, evidences are designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards of the future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having a direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a canting world.
He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation, till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he is utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable then and formidable to tyrants only.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness in his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states. For that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriation of land.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new officers and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution,
and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their act of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these lands and states.
For cutting off our trade with all ports of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate us for all in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections among us, has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We've appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. And we have conjured by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence.
They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consequentity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress Assembly, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
And that as free and independent states, They have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may have right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we, all of us, everyone that's not here, that are serving our country, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Georgia, Button, Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walker.
North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn.
South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton.
Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll.
Virginia, George White, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton.
Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross.
Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean.
New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris.
New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark.
New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple. Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery.
Massachusetts, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Fleet Mays, and Albert Gary.
Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott. New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton.
Hey, wait, we're going to get a picture of everybody before everybody.
We're going to do a group picture after.
Okay. Make sure nobody blocks either part of you. You want to get everybody's great. One, two, three, get a few. One more. The last one.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming out for our 13th annual reading of the Declaration of Independence. At a time like this, it seems to me that it's even more important that we revisit the foundations of our democracy. Thank you.